Okay, let's unpack this.
There's a lot to get through today.
There really is. So today is January 14th, 2026, and we're looking at the immediate aftermath of one of the most unusual and high-stakes diplomatic conclusions Washington has seen in years.
For sure. The issue at hand is President Trump's publicly stated goal of acquiring Greenland.
A very aggressively pursued goal.
Absolutely. And, it's so much more than just a real estate negotiation. It's really a foundational clash.
Between what?
Between American national security ambitions in the Arctic and, well, the deeply held sovereignty of Denmark and Greenland.
And we have to remember, these are crucial NATO allies.
Exactly. That's what makes this whole diplomatic drama so completely unprecedented.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to synthesize the massive stack of sources detailing this whole conflict. We're looking for those critical nuggets.
The aha moments.
Exactly. The astonishing financial costs, the strategic reasoning behind the push, the unwavering resistance from Greenland. And, of course, the geopolitical shockwaves this is sending through NATO and the EU.
If you want the definitive shortcut to being fully informed on this saga, this is it.
So let's start where all these big decisions really begin, with the money.
We have to, because the money involved here is truly extraordinary.
How much are we talking about?
Well, based on estimates from leading scholars and former U.S. officials, the price range for buying the 800,000 square mile territory falls somewhere between $500 billion and $700 billion.
500 to 700 billion. I mean, that is a figure that just makes your eyes water.
It's nearly astronomical.
How does that actually stack up against, a national budget?
So to give you some context, that $700 billion top estimate, that's more than half of the entire Defense Department's annual budget.
More than half. Wow.
It's a cost that's comparable to the entire GDP of some mid-sized G20 nations. So this isn't just writing a big check.
No, it's a fundamental commitment of resources that requires a massive, almost existential justification.
And that leads us directly to the administration's core rationale, which the sources detail exhaustively.
Right. They're not talking about tourism rights here.
Not at all. They're talking about permanent national security. The goal is to acquire Greenland as a permanent, non-negotiable strategic buffer in the Arctic.
Against who?
Against their top perceived threats, Russia and China. The administration sees the island as ground zero in this growing great power competition.
And the president himself has framed this in terms that, they reflect his background, right? A real estate developer.
Exactly. He sees it as fundamentally owning versus merely leasing property.
For him, ownership is the only way to solidify a truly long-term, unshakable strategic relationship.
Making it something like Guam or Puerto Rico. And that mindset is really key to understanding the pressure they're applying.
There's another driver of this urgency too, right? The fear of Greenlandic independence.
A massive one. According to the sources, there's a deep fear that if Greenland ever did achieve full independence from Denmark, and that's a scenario that gets discussed a lot, its vast 27,000 miles of coastline could fall into the sphere of Russia or China.
And that's seen as an unacceptable security risk.
Totally unacceptable. So this is really a preemptive move against a hypothetical future crisis.
And the president has been specific about a current strategic need, referencing something called the Golden Dome. What is that?
The president explicitly said the U.S. needs Greenland for the purpose of national security and that it is vital for the Golden Dome.
Which is?
It's the administration's proposed next-generation missile defense system. Greenland's location is critical because it sits right on the northern approach route for any potential ICBMs launched from Russia or even China.
So having radar and interceptors there is crucial for early detection.
Crucial. It maximizes the interception range. In a nuclear context, Greenland is just invaluable real estate.
So we have a clear, vital strategic need protecting the U.S. homeland and a willingness to spend up to $700 billion to lock it down permanently.
And what's fascinating here is just the sheer scale of that cost relative to the need.
Especially when they already have access.
Exactly, especially when the U.S. already has military access and strong agreements in place. It suggests the administration sees the risk of losing that space as being worth this historically massive investment.
And that's the central contradiction, isn't it? The U.S. is pushing for absolute ownership.
But their partner nation, a NATO ally, is basically saying, you don't need to buy it, we're already on your team.
Which takes us right into the response from Greenland and Denmark.
A unified and very resistant rejection.
Yeah, you can put a price on a landmass, but what about the price of sovereignty?
Well, the response has been absolutely unwavering. Officials from both Denmark and Greenland have been perfectly consistent in their message. Greenland is not for sale.
Zero ambiguity.
None. And this isn't just a talking point from Copenhagen. It reflects a deep democratic consensus among the people who actually live there.
I saw a poll on that.
Right. An independent poll last year found that about 85% of Greenlanders rejected the idea of becoming part of the United States.
That is just overwhelming resistance.
It's almost a unanimous public vote against it. And you hear it directly from their leaders. Greenland's foreign minister, Vivian Motzfeldt, was crystal clear.
What did she say?
She said, Greenland does not want to be owned by, governed by, or part of the United States. We choose the Greenland we know today as part of the Kingdom of Denmark.
You have to think about the psychological reality of that. The entire population is only about 57,000 people.
Roughly the size of a medium American suburb.
And to have a superpower aggressively demand to purchase your home, your entire country, it must feel completely destabilizing.
The sources confirm that psychological toll. John Nathanielson, the Minister for Business and Mineral Resources, she specifically noted the U.S. messages are causing massive pressure, anxiety.
Even trouble sleeping.
Exactly. This isn't some theoretical diplomatic spat. It's causing real-world distress for the population.
And Denmark has stood firm, despite all that pressure.
They have. The Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, she emphasized a crucial principle here, saying that borders cannot be changed by force, and that small countries should not fear large countries.
That language is so significant. It's a core tenet of the NATO alliance itself.
It absolutely is. It forces the U.S. to confront the fundamental hypocrisy of its own position.
And it brings us back to that question of access versus ownership.
Right. And a U.S. official familiar with the current arrangements had this brilliant, very candid summary of the whole dilemma.
What was the quote?
He pointed out the U.S. can already put more troops there, expand its capabilities under the current agreement. He said, why invade the cow when they'll sell you the milk at relatively good prices?
That analogy just cuts to the heart of the matter. If the goal is strategic capability, that can already be negotiated.
It can. Yet the White House keeps pushing for an outright purchase.
So let's look at the diplomatic paths here and the pretty extreme pressure tactics at play.
Okay, so the talks that just wrapped up today were cabinet level. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with the foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland.
And Rubio was tasked with what exactly?
He was tasked with crafting a formal written proposal to purchase the island. They are serious about that $700 billion check.
But the sources also highlight an alternative being floated. A compromise.
That's the option of forming a Compact of Free Association, or COFA, with Greenland.
A COFA. Explain what that actually entails.
So a COFA is basically a government-to-government agreement where the U.S. provides massive financial and development aid.
And in exchange?
In exchange, the other nation grants the U.S. exclusive rights to maintain a security presence and, crucially, to deny access to any third-party military.
So deny access to Russia and China.
That's the goal. It's a model the U.S. has used successfully for decades in the Pacific, with places like the Marshall Islands and Palau.
So it sounds like it satisfies the U.S. security goal without the diplomatic chaos and, the astronomical price tag.
It absolutely does. It's significantly less costly, and it maintains the political optics of respecting sovereignty. It's a strategic and diplomatic win-win.
Here's where it gets really interesting then.
Yeah.
Because while you have these formal viable alternatives like COFA on the table, the U.S. is simultaneously using these remarkably aggressive pressure tactics against an ally.
The rhetoric has been utterly confrontational. I mean, Trump publicly stated that if the U.S. doesn't get Greenland the easy way, they are going to do it the hard way.
That's unprecedented language to use with a NATO partner.
Totally. And it even spilled into official government communications.
You're talking about that social media post?
The White House post, yeah. It showed two dog sleds, one headed toward the U.S., one toward Russia and China, with the caption, "Which way, Greenland man?"
A clear and pretty insulting reference.
Very. It's diplomatic coercion masquerading as negotiation. And the Danish Prime Minister called it out publicly.
What did she say?
She said it hasn't been easy for Denmark to stand up to completely unacceptable pressure from our closest ally.
So that unacceptable pressure leads us to the final and maybe most critical piece of this, the impact on global alliances, specifically NATO.
The geopolitical implications are severe. This whole episode questions the underlying principles of the alliance.
And while military force seems unlikely,
Experts call it highly hypothetical. But the mere threat, it damages trust irrevocably. One expert said it would stir up unbelievable tensions within the NATO alliance and maybe even spell the end of the NATO alliance.
That is not hyperbole. That is a threat to the entire security structure the U.S. built after World War II.
And we've seen the reaction from Europe. They've rallied behind Denmark almost immediately.
Who specifically?
President Macron in France, Ursula von der Leyen from the European Commission. They've all publicly backed Denmark, emphasizing respect for Greenland's self-determination.
And this backlash isn't just in Europe, is it? We're seeing it in the U.S. Congress, too.
We are. Senators introduced bipartisan legislation specifically to prohibit the Defense Department from using funds to assert control over a NATO member's territory without their permission.
A direct bipartisan challenge to the administration's rhetoric.
And the public isn't on board either. A Reuters poll showed only 17% of Americans approved of the effort.
And using military force.
Almost universally rejected. Only 4% of people thought that was a good idea.
Which brings us back to that irony we talked about. The strategy is isolated, it's toxic, it risks destroying NATO.
And yet, the U.S. already has significant, stable strategic access.
Tell us about that. What do we have there now?
The U.S. maintains a major presence at Patuxent Space Base. It's home to U.S. Space Force personnel and crucial early warning radar systems.
So we're already watching Russia and China from there.
Constantly. And on top of that, Denmark and the U.S. share intelligence about the region regularly. The security partnership is already robust.
And the sources are clear. Greenland is open to negotiating more U.S. military assets, right?
And they're keen to discuss strategic resource development, like rare earth minerals. They are willing partners.
Which creates this fundamental disconnect. All the benefits the administration wants are already being realized through cooperation.
Exactly. The push for ownership just seems like an unnecessary strategic and political risk.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
I think it means we've witnessed a high-stakes power play driven by an almost impossible demand. Let's just summarize the core findings.
Go for it.
The cost is astronomical, up to $700 billion. The political resistance is overwhelming, nearly 85%. The aggressive rhetoric is actively threatening the stability of NATO.
And yet,
less confrontational, effective options like that CUFO agreement exist, and the U.S. already benefits hugely from the military and intelligence access it has.
so the ultimate battle here isn't over the physical territory itself.
No, it's over the method of achieving security.
Okay, so leave us with a final thought on that.
All right. Given that the U.S. and Denmark are already intelligence partners, and Greenland is open to hosting more military assets and even negotiating on rare earth minerals, the true long-term struggle might not be over ownership. It might be over whether this unacceptable pressure will ultimately undermine the very military cooperation the U.S. already benefits from.
So here's the final thought for you to mull over.
If cooperation can secure all of your vital strategic needs, what strategic or political value is gained by using aggressive rhetoric that simultaneously damages your most critical security alliances? That contradiction is what's going to define Arctic strategy for years to come.